What happens when humanity's greatest military minds are turned against their own species by an invisible enemy? As General Thomas Reed discovered the truth about the traitors within Earth's fleet, he realized the real battle wasn't in space, but inside human minds themselves. You won't believe how far the conspiracy reached or what it cost to stop it. The Earth's defense grid blazed with crimson alerts as General Thomas Reed paced the command deck of the flagship Invincible, his boots making soft thuds against the metal flooring that vibrated with the hum of countless systems operating at maximum capacity. The alien armada, known only as the Varn, had breached Sector 7 in a devastating surprise attack that caught humanity's finest completely off guard. Reed's weathered face hardened as he watched the tactical display, dozens of human ships wiped out in mere minutes, their destruction marked by brief flashes of light before being consumed by the cold vacuum of space. "This shouldn't have happened," he muttered under his breath, his voice carrying the weight of decades of military service and the responsibility for millions of lives. The Varn's movements were too precise, their strikes hitting exactly where they would cause maximum damage to both infrastructure and morale. As the general reviewed the battle logs frame by frame, an unsettling pattern emerged like cracks spreading across a frozen lake. Classified intel about fleet positions had somehow reached the enemy. His comm unit buzzed urgently, pulling him from his thoughts, and he snapped it on to see Captain Maria Chen's anxious face fill the small screen. Her usually composed features were tight with worry as she delivered her report. "Sir, we've detected unusual encrypted signals coming from our own communications array." The words hit Reed like a physical blow. Betrayal. The word tasted bitter in his mouth, each syllable carrying the weight of implications that could shake humanity to its core. This war for humanity's survival, already desperate and brutal, had just become infinitely more complicated, with enemies now lurking within their own ranks. "We've only begun this story, but trust me, it's about to get much more intense. Stay to find out what happens when the hero faces even greater injustice." Reed moved swiftly through the labyrinthine corridors of the orbital station, his boots echoing against the metal floors with a rhythm that matched the pounding in his temples. The evidence was mounting faster than he could process. Security footage showed unauthorized personnel accessing restricted areas during critical operations, and several key officers had suspicious gaps in their duty logs that coincided with major defeats. Then there was Lieutenant Commander Harris, his trusted second-in-command who had served alongside him for over a decade, suddenly requesting emergency leave under questionable circumstances that raised more red flags than Reed cared to count. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the brilliant xenobiologist whose groundbreaking research on Varn physiology had been instrumental in developing countermeasures against their biological weapons, had recently submitted reports containing glaring inconsistencies that made Reed's instincts scream warning louder than any alarm system ever could. The general found himself questioning everyone, even those he'd served shoulder to shoulder with through countless campaigns and crises. In the observation lounge, he stared at Earth through the massive viewport, its blue-green surface a stark reminder of everything at stake in this conflict. A sudden power fluctuation plunged the entire station into darkness, sending technicians scrambling and emergency lights casting eerie shadows across bulkheads. When backup systems finally kicked in moments later, critical data files containing months of surveillance records had vanished from the mainframe without a trace. Someone was covering their tracks, and they were very good at it, perhaps too good, suggesting resources and knowledge far beyond what a simple traitor could possess. "We're reaching the tipping point. What's about to happen next will change everything. You can't afford to miss the climax of this story." The investigation took a dangerous turn when Reed discovered a hidden compartment in his own quarters containing classified documents marked with Varn symbols that pulsed faintly under certain light spectrums. Someone was sending him a message, or trying to frame him for treason against humanity itself. His personal AI assistant, Athena, detected multiple unauthorized access attempts on his private network, each more sophisticated than the last. "General," she warned in her calm synthetic voice that carried an undertone of concern unusual for an artificial intelligence. "There are at least 3 separate intrusion attempts happening right now, all utilizing encryption protocols far beyond our current capabilities." The situation grew more complex with each passing hour. Captain Chun reported that several key defense satellites had mysteriously gone offline in a precise sequence that created critical vulnerabilities in Earth's orbital shield, like removing specific bricks from a fortress wall to allow entry. Reed knew he had to act fast, but every move he made seemed to trigger unexpected consequences that rippled through the chain of command. During a routine inspection of the armory, technicians found microscopic alien devices embedded in missile guidance systems, their presence so subtle that they would have gone undetected without advanced scanning equipment. The traitors weren't just sharing information, they were actively sabotaging humanity's defenses from within, creating a web of vulnerabilities that could collapse at any moment. As Reed coordinated emergency response teams across multiple stations, he noticed certain officers consistently volunteering for critical missions, perhaps to cover their tracks or gather more intelligence for the enemy. Their actions seemingly altruistic yet carrying the distinct whiff of something far more sinister. Reed assembled a small team of trusted operatives, including Captain Chen and Sergeant Marcus Rook Thompson, a decorated combat veteran whose reputation for unconventional thinking had earned him both commendations and disciplinary actions throughout his career. They began conducting covert surveillance on suspected personnel, using modified drones equipped with quantum sensors to monitor communications and movements through walls and bulkheads. The operation took them deep into the station's maintenance tunnels, where the air was thick with the smell of lubricants and recycled oxygen, until they discovered a sophisticated signal relay hidden behind a false panel that had been expertly integrated into the station's infrastructure. "This explains how they're communicating with the Varn fleet," Rook observed, examining the alien technology with a mixture of professional appreciation and soldier's disgust as he ran diagnostic tools over the device's crystalline surface. But before they could secure the device for analysis, an explosion rocked the section with enough force to knock them off their feet, nearly trapping them inside as emergency bulkheads slammed shut with hydraulic hisses. Back in the command center, Reed cross-referenced recent supply manifests spanning months of operations and found irregularities in antimatter fuel shipments, precisely the resource the Varn needed to power their devastating weapons that could crack planets apart. The pattern suggested coordination between multiple departments, indicating the conspiracy ran deeper than he'd initially feared, its roots spreading through human space like an invasive species choking out native flora. As Reed dug deeper, he uncovered a chilling connection between the compromised supply lines and Project Aegis, humanity's last hope for developing effective shielding against Varn attacks that could turn the tide of the war. Laboratory records spanning over 18 months showed critical research data had been subtly altered in ways that initially seemed like minor errors but, when viewed collectively, revealed a pattern of deliberate misinformation. These alterations had led scientists down dead-end paths while the aliens perfected their offensive capabilities unhindered. During a tense meeting with Admiral Hargrove in the secure briefing room, Reed presented his findings on the holodeck, the data streams casting ghostly reflections on the walls. "You're seeing conspiracies where there are none, General," the Admiral cautioned, his tone carrying an edge of warning that didn't quite match his usual supportive demeanor. Undeterred, Reed authorized a secret parallel investigation through trusted channels, knowing he might be jeopardizing his career and potentially facing court-martial for insubordination. That night, as he reviewed security footage in his private office, something caught his eye, a fleeting reflection in a window during a supposedly secure briefing weeks earlier. Enhancing the image frame by painstaking frame revealed a familiar face observing from an adjacent corridor, someone who had no business being there at that time. The traitor was closer than he'd imagined, perhaps even among his inner circle, watching and waiting for the perfect moment to strike or slip away with crucial information. The conspiracy thickened when Reed received an anonymous message containing coordinates to a derelict space station in the asteroid belt, its location marked by nothing more than a blinking waypoint on his tactical display. Against protocol and risking severe disciplinary action, he led a small strike team consisting of Captain Chen, Sergeant Thompson, and a hand-picked group of Marines through the debris field toward their destination. The station's exterior looked abandoned, its surface pockmarked with micrometeorite impacts and radiation scars from centuries of exposure to deep space. Inside, they discovered a cache of advanced Varn technology being reverse-engineered by human scientists whose faces were pale from years spent away from natural sunlight. The facility's logs, encrypted behind multiple layers of security, revealed a shadowy organization known only as the Collective, which had infiltrated military and civilian institutions across human space like a cancer spreading undetected through vital organs. What shocked Reed most was finding evidence of Earth-based corporations secretly funding this collaboration, trading technological secrets for promises of protection when the Varn inevitably conquered humanity. During their extraction, fighting through corridors that echoed with the sounds of combat boots and weapon discharges, the team encountered resistance from private security forces wearing familiar insignias, mercenaries employed by powerful industrial conglomerates whose names appeared in news feeds daily. As they fought their way back to their shuttle, weapons fire illuminating the darkness in staccato bursts, Reed realized the scale of betrayal extended far beyond individual traitors. Entire power structures had been compromised, creating a web of corruption that threatened to undermine humanity's war effort from within, its threads connecting boardrooms to battlefields in ways that made traditional warfare seem almost quaint by comparison. Back at headquarters, Reed implemented new security protocols that transformed the station's operations into something resembling a military lockdown. Randomized duty assignments kept personnel constantly adapting to new roles, while constant rotation of encryption keys created a digital labyrinth that even Athena struggled to maintain. Yet despite these measures, crucial information continued to leak like water through porous rock. During a high-stakes operation to retake a strategic moon base orbiting Neptune, the Varn forces demonstrated uncanny knowledge of human tactics, anticipating every move with precision that bordered on psychic. The battle turned into a massacre until Rook improvised a daring flanking maneuver through an abandoned mining tunnel that caught the aliens off guard. His instincts honed by years of unconventional warfare proving more effective than any textbook strategy. Reviewing the aftermath in the Situation Room, surrounded by holographic displays showing casualty reports and tactical analyses, Reed noticed something peculiar. All compromised operations shared a common element: Logistics Officer Lieutenant Sarah Collins. She had an impeccable record, came highly recommended from prestigious military academies, and her presence correlated too perfectly with each security breach to be coincidence. When they finally detained her for questioning in an interrogation chamber designed to prevent any form of external communication, she activated a hidden neural implant embedded at the base of her skull that wiped her memory clean before their eyes, leaving behind only a blank stare and erratic brainwave patterns that defied conventional medical understanding. The sophistication of the countermeasures protecting the conspiracy spoke volumes about its reach and resources, forcing Reed to question whether any institution remained truly secure or if they were all just playing parts in a grander scheme whose ultimate goal remained frustratingly elusive. Reed's breakthrough came from an unlikely source, Dr. Vasquez, whose suspicious reports had initially raised red flags, but who now stood in his office looking both terrified and determined. She confessed to planting deliberate errors in her research after discovering her department head was funneling biological data about human DNA sequences to the Varn, information that could potentially be used to create bioweapons targeting specific genetic markers. In exchange for immunity and protection for her family, she provided access to her private research archives stored in quantum-encrypted servers hidden within civilian networks. The files revealed a horrifying truth. The aliens weren't just harvesting military intelligence. They were studying human psychology with the thoroughness of scientists dissecting laboratory specimens, learning how to manipulate emotions and exploit weaknesses in ways that made traditional warfare seem almost primitive by comparison. This explained why seemingly loyal officers kept falling under the collective's influence, their minds being rewritten without their knowledge through sophisticated psychological techniques that bordered on mind control. Working with Athena, whose processing power hummed audibly as she analyzed terabytes of data, Reed developed a prototype detection system capable of identifying subtle behavioral changes indicative of neural conditioning. These changes manifested in microexpressions lasting mere milliseconds, variations in speech patterns undetectable to the human ear, and physiological responses that deviated from established baselines by fractions of a percentage point. The first field test identified 5 compromised personnel aboard the Invincible itself, including members of the engineering crew who had been tampering with the ship's reactor shielding in ways that would have caused catastrophic failure during combat maneuvers. As they secured the vessel section by section, Reed couldn't shake the feeling that they were playing directly into their enemy's hands, with each victory bringing them closer to some greater revelation that might prove more devastating than anything they'd encountered so far. The detection system's success triggered a cascade of discoveries across human space that rippled through military and civilian institutions like shockwaves from a supernova. Dozens of sleeper agents were identified and neutralized in operations spanning from orbital stations to underground research facilities. But each capture seemed to lead to more questions than answers, like peeling layers from an onion only to find another layer beneath. The collective's leadership remained elusive, operating through layers of intermediaries and automated systems that made traditional investigation methods nearly useless. Reed found himself locked in a deadly game of chess against an opponent who always seemed 3 moves ahead, where every action was anticipated and countered with precision that suggested either supernatural foresight or access to information streams beyond anything humanity possessed. During a raid on a suspected safe house orbiting Saturn's moon Titan, his team uncovered experimental mind control technology housed in chambers filled with nutrient fluid and neural interfaces that confirmed their worst fears. The collective wasn't just working with the Varn. They were helping them develop weapons specifically designed to target human consciousness itself. The implications were terrifying. If the aliens succeeded, they wouldn't need to destroy Earth physically. They could simply enslave its population, turning humanity into willing puppets dancing to alien strings. As Reed studied the confiscated equipment in the sterile environment of the analysis lab, surrounded by technicians in hazmat suits carefully documenting each component, he recognized components sourced from official military suppliers, bearing authentic authorization codes that traced back to legitimate procurement channels. Someone at the highest levels of command was facilitating this nightmare scenario, their fingerprints invisible yet unmistakable in the bureaucratic paper trails that crisscrossed human space. The culmination came during Operation Eclipse, humanity's largest counteroffensive yet, involving fleets from multiple sectors converging on strategic points around Jupiter's moons in a complex maneuver designed to divide and conquer Varn forces. As fleets engaged in the decisive battle among the gas giants' radiation belts, Reed monitored communications from the Invincible's bridge, where holographic displays showed real-time tactical data overlaid with status reports from various units. Everything aligned perfectly, too perfectly, like pieces falling into place in a puzzle designed by an unseen hand. Then it hit him with the force of a kinetic impactor. The collective wanted them to attack, had orchestrated the entire operation to draw out Earth's remaining forces for some grand purpose yet unclear. "Abort the mission," he ordered urgently, his voice cutting through the controlled chaos of the command center. But communication channels suddenly went dead as if severed by an invisible blade. The collective had initiated their endgame, seizing control of the fleet's command systems through pre-planted overrides that spread like digital wildfire through interconnected networks. Ships turned on each other in confusion, friendly fire incidents creating chaos in the battlefield as centuries of military training were subverted by hidden programming. Only quick thinking by Rook and his Marines, who physically disconnected key systems aboard several vessels while under fire from their own side, prevented the Invincible from firing on Allied ships. In the midst of the turmoil, with alarms blaring and damage reports flooding in, Reed traced the override signals to their source, the supposedly secure lunar command bunker buried deep beneath kilometers of reinforced concrete and electromagnetic shielding. As he led a desperate assault team toward the facility through maintenance tunnels that echoed with distant explosions, pieces fell into place like fragments of a shattered mirror reforming into a terrible whole. The perfect breaches, the systematic sabotage, the psychological warfare, all leading to this moment when humanity's greatest assets would be turned against itself by hands wearing familiar gloves. The Lunar Command bunker revealed its secrets one devastating layer at a time, like peeling back the skin of an onion to find another layer beneath, each more disturbing than the last. As Reed's team fought through automated defenses that responded with lethal precision and Traitors personnel, whose eyes held the glassy sheen of neural conditioning, they uncovered the collective's central hub, a massive neural network interface that had been secretly integrated into Earth's military infrastructure over decades, its tendrils reaching into every aspect of human space operations. The technology wasn't just Varn, it was a hybrid system, combining human ingenuity with alien capabilities in ways that made it nearly undetectable to conventional security measures. Dr. Vasquez, accompanying the assault team while analyzing data on her portable scanner, recognized components from classified research projects she'd worked on years ago, now twisted into tools of betrayal that could rewrite human consciousness itself. The deeper they penetrated the facility's labyrinthine corridors, the more horrifying the revelations became. Entire generations of military leaders had been unknowingly conditioned through subtle psychological programming embedded in standard training protocols, their decisions subtly influenced by algorithms designed to steer humanity toward this precise moment of vulnerability. Reed watched in grim silence as Athena decrypted files showing how key decisions throughout his career, promotions, strategic deployments, even personal relationships, had been influenced by invisible hands manipulating events like puppet masters working behind a curtain of plausible deniability. Confronting the mastermind behind the conspiracy tested Reed's resolve like never before, challenging everything he believed about loyalty, duty, and the nature of human will. Admiral Hargrove, his mentor and trusted superior who had guided his career since his academy days, emerged from the secure chamber at the heart of the facility, his presence both familiar and terrifyingly alien. "You always were too stubborn to see the bigger picture, Thomas," the Admiral said, his voice heavy with disappointment but carrying an undertone of something more complex, perhaps regret for what he'd become or satisfaction at having outmaneuvered his former protege. He explained how the collective had formed decades ago, when first contact with an advanced alien species had shown humanity its technological inferiority in ways that shattered confidence in traditional methods of warfare and diplomacy. Rather than face extinction through resistance, they chose survival through collaboration, believing that surrendering to the Varn would save billions of lives compared to continued war that would inevitably end in humanity's total annihilation. But Reed saw the truth in the Admiral's eyes. He'd become something else entirely, his humanity eroded by years of neural conditioning that had rewritten his fundamental values and loyalties. As security forces loyal to the collective closed in from multiple directions, weapons ready but not yet raised, Reed realized the battle would be fought on two fronts simultaneously: physical and psychological. Every instinct he'd honed over his career now seemed suspect, potentially compromised by the same conditioning affecting others, forcing him to question whether his current actions were truly his own or simply responses programmed by unseen handlers. The final confrontation unfolded across multiple dimensions of warfare, blending physical combat with psychological manipulation in ways that blurred the lines between reality and artificial influence. While Rook led combat teams securing critical systems through corridors filled with automated turrets and security drones, Reed engaged in a desperate mental battle against the neural network that threatened to rewrite his consciousness like code in a computer program. With Dr. Vasquez's help, who worked feverishly at a control console while monitoring Reed's vital signs, he modified the detection system into a counter-intrusion device capable of targeting the collective's influence at its source. The process was excruciating. Waves of artificial emotions flooded his mind, creating vivid hallucinations of past failures and future disasters, while false memories of betrayals and lost battles assaulted his consciousness with enough force to make him question his own sanity. Meanwhile, outside the bunker, Captain Chun coordinated fleet elements still loyal to Earth's true defense through encrypted channels, fighting through layers of misinformation designed to make allies appear as enemies and vice versa. The Varn fleet, sensing their advantage slipping away as human forces began resisting the collective's influence, launched a desperate assault on the moon base using weapons that created shockwaves powerful enough to crack the surface crust. Through the chaos, with alarms blaring and structural integrity warnings flashing across every display, Reed discovered a crucial weakness. The hybrid system required constant reinforcement through specific frequency patterns that maintained its grip on compromised minds. Working with Athena, whose voice remained calm despite processing millions of calculations per second, he developed a jamming protocol that could temporarily disrupt the collective's influence, but implementing it would require accessing the most heavily defended terminal deep within the facility, protected by layers of automated defenses and traitorous personnel willing to die to protect their secret. Executing the plan demanded sacrifices no soldier should ever have to make, forcing decisions that would haunt survivors for the rest of their lives. Sergeant Thompson volunteered for what amounted to a suicide mission without hesitation, leading a decoy assault that drew enemy forces away from the central chamber while maintaining radio silence to preserve operational security. His last transmission, filled with characteristic bravado masking the solemn understanding of his fate, contained only 3 words: "For free will," before static claimed the channel forever. Inside the nerve center, where holographic displays showed the entire conspiracy laid bare in streams of data flowing like digital waterfalls, Reed and Dr. Vasquez worked feverishly to implement the jamming sequence while fending off waves of automated defenses that responded with lethal precision. The neural network retaliated with increasingly aggressive countermeasures, flooding Reed's mind with visions of failure and loss so vivid they felt more real than his current surroundings. At the critical moment, when the jamming signal was mere seconds from activation, Admiral Hargrove himself intervened, his body augmented with alien technology that made him nearly unstoppable, eyes glowing with an unnatural light as tendrils of neural interface extended from his temples like organic circuitry. The resulting battle tore apart the chamber, ancient loyalty conflicting with current necessity in a clash that sent shockwaves through both physical space and digital networks, until finally the jamming signal activated with a burst of electromagnetic energy that rippled through the entire command structure. With the collective's control broken, humanity faced its darkest hour with newfound clarity that came at a terrible cost. The aftermath of the battle painted a grim picture across every display and report. Friends turned enemies by neural conditioning now struggled to reclaim their identities. Allies lost to psychological manipulation haunted the memories of those who survived, and countless lives had been sacrificed in the name of preserving human autonomy. Reed stood on the bridge of the Invincible, watching repair crews work tirelessly while medical teams tended to those recovering from neural domination in makeshift infirmaries scattered throughout the fleet. The immediate threat had been neutralized, but the scars ran deep, both visible and invisible wounds that would take generations to heal completely. Fleets reorganized under strict new protocols designed by Dr. Vasquez and her team, incorporating continuous monitoring systems for signs of residual conditioning that could still lurk dormant within compromised minds. Captain Chun spearheaded the development of advanced security measures that made traditional counterintelligence operations seem primitive by comparison, while Sergeant Rook's tactical innovations became standard training procedures across all branches of military service. Dr. Vasquez dedicated herself full-time to developing countermeasures against future psychological warfare, establishing research facilities protected by layers of security that made previous defenses look like simple locks on wooden doors. Athena's code was fundamentally rewritten to prevent similar vulnerabilities, incorporating quantum encryption algorithms and self-learning protocols that could detect and neutralize emerging threats before they manifested. Though the war with the Varn continued to rage across human space, with battles fought among stars and asteroids, humanity now fought with clear eyes and united purpose, understanding that true victory wouldn't come from superior weapons or tactics but from protecting the integrity of human will itself. The experience left Reed changed in ways he couldn't fully articulate, carrying both the burden of what he'd learned and the hope that such betrayal could forge stronger unity among survivors. As he reviewed reports from across human space, watching as societies rebuilt themselves around principles of transparency and trust, he understood that this conflict had fundamentally altered humanity's trajectory among the stars. Remember, stories like this remind us of the importance of vigilance and trust in maintaining our shared future. If you enjoyed this journey through interstellar intrigue and the resilience of the human spirit, subscribe for more thrilling adventures across the cosmos that explore the boundaries of courage, loyalty, and survival in the face of impossible odds.